Um, I will be, like I said before, putting out the video on the greatest heavyweight champions. Sorry, the greatest welterweight champions. I did put out something on the greatest heavyweight champions, but we will look at the greatest welterweight champions. So stay tuned for that. Um, so as you see there, Robert Garcia talks about how Floyd Mayweather is not a runner, which is very good to see. You know, as like I said before, as Floyd's career comes to, as you move further and further away from Floyd's career, as I think a lot of people are realizing, they realize just how great he was and just how fantastic he was as a boxer. I think he is, now I can say pretty much, having compiled a lot of information about him, I believe that what he claims to be the best ever, he definitely is, and has lived up to that. And there's evidence for that. But also, I believe if you're talking about the greatest fighters of all time, he's up there in the top 10. Top 10, top 5. Pacquiao's up there in the top 10. Top 10, top 5. You know, the names that most people commonly think about are Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Henry Armstrong, you know, Carlos Monzon, you know, because there's a lot of, to be honest with you, there's a lot of great fighters out here and were. Okay, there were a lot of great fighters. So you have to really think about, well, how am I going to categorize these great fighters? And so it always depends on the criteria you use to categorize the great fighters, that you can't just arbitrarily, because they do, what made them great was certain things. So, and not because one fighter did certain things and another fighter didn't do it, makes them greater than another. So that's why you have to have criteria. So all I look at it, yes sir, XX Boxing Raw, let's get it, TVE. You know what? I should do a stream with you guys with StreamYard, so you guys could pop on there and let's talk about TVE. I think we should celebrate Floyd as the best ever, because there's so many different reasons for that, and he doesn't get the just a due that he's supposed to get, especially in the boxing community. And I've seen people now starting to praise him and come around to realize how good he was. And again, as time moves along and the further we come away from his career, and the reason why that's happening is because more and more people are entering the Boxing Hall of Fame that he beat. People just recently there, Angel Manfredi entered into the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. He's also in the he's in 2 other Boxing Hall of Fames, I believe. And it might shock everybody if he ends up being maybe even nominated. I don't think he'll be inducted, but nominated into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That is very possible. So I never thought of Angel Manfredi as a Hall of Famer, but he is entering into different boxing halls of fames. Because again, for those of you who don't know, Angel Manfredi was a very accomplished boxer when Floyd faced him, especially, and even after he's a very accomplished boxer. I don't think of him as Hall of Fame material, but you know, he was a very, very, very good boxer. And all you got to do is go watch him against Arturo Gatti, against Calvin Grove, against Brown, against he beat a couple of people who were some former world champions, and also he also beat guys on the way up to becoming champion. And some of the guys was really tough guys at super featherweight. And he went into lightweight, didn't do so well. Went back down to super featherweight, got knocked out by Diego Corrales. He also faced Diego Corrales, by the way, most feared super featherweight at that time. You know, Diego Corrales was the dude. But anyway, so all I'm saying is that Mayweather is a very special breed of fighter, and I don't see why he can't be called TBE. I don't see why he's not the best ever. And the more we look at what he brings to the table in terms of boxing, what he does boxing wise, you know, you gotta give the guy his props, man. You gotta give the guy his props. If he says he's the best ever, he definitely is that. And you will find more pro boxers. So anyway, so Ali Sekback was interviewing X-Raw 2013 says it would be nice to have Floyd sitting in a film study and explaining different movements in one of his fights. He teaches fighters now. So he actually teaches his fighters, and there are certain secrets to his defense, right? And some of the things I've observed, and some of the things with my limited boxing knowledge, because I'm a baby in the game. He teaches fighters, and then he specifically teaches fighters certain things. I'll give you an example of what he did with Devin Haney, and it's something he does in boxing. So Floyd, one of the things that they tell you not to do is slip to the inside of a jab. Slip to the inside of a jab. The reason they tell you that to slip to the inside of the jab because it can get countered with a straight right, right? Straight right could be coming up the pipe, you know, and you can get hit with that. But Floyd showed Devin Haney that you're not just slipping to the inside of a jab. What you're going to do is use the spear jab. It's called the spear jab, and I must just demonstrate it in the orthodox stance for you guys. So basically, here I am, right? I'm in the orthodox stance. I slip the jab, but I'm not just slipping the jab. I'm slipping the jab with my hand cocked in the spear jab. So this is a spear jab right here. That's a spear jab. Let me do it to the camera, right? So here I am. Camera's right here, okay? Right there. And a spear jab, right? A spear jab launches from here, down low, up top to the face of a person. It's a very effective weapon because here's the thing. When I slip and I blind you, let me see if I can get to the camera perfect. Where's the camera? That's it. So I slip and I blind you here. You see? You see? I'll blind you with the spear jab. Right? So it's not just slipping, but it's slipping and blinding the guy. So he can't throw the right hand. You see what I'm saying? And you have to be very confident with it. And that's how Floyd would back off a guy who's taller and longer than him. He used what is called a spear jab. All right? I'm going to show you the spear jab from the side. So for those of you who are learning boxing, there are different kinds of jabs. There's the normal jab. I'm in the orthodox stance, and I just pop the normal jab. Okay? There's the power jab. I'm going to show you from the front. This is where the power jab is where you cock your hand back this way. So the elbow is here, and you shoot down. So just imagine that. Wah! You look at Vernon Forrest. Wah! Okay? Okay? Right? That's the power jab. And it's a lot of power generated from that. You got the up jab. The up jab. So if I'm here, I'm gonna drop my hands here, and then I just pop it up. Like this. Right? And what it does, it can knock up your shin. Okay? So that's the up jab. Alright? Like a flick. It's like you flick it up. Here. Here. Okay? Alright. So you got the up jab, you got the down jab. The down jab is something like the power jab. It's like this. And you're punching downward. So you have the up jab and you got the down jab. Right? Okay. And then you got the spear jab. The spear jab, Mike Tyson used the spear jab. So when he had the peekaboo, he go here, slip off the side, ha, 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 ha. Okay? That is the spear jab. The spear jab, now Mike Tyson used to shift. So his body positioning, right? He's square up. So he may be coming in this way on you. Alright? He'd be coming in this way on you. And then he may stab this way, or he may stab this way. Okay? So that was Mike Tyson's style. And he stayed low. Now, but in a stance like this, which is the orthodox stance, where the lead foot is the right foot, this foot here, is the lead, right? Okay? So, In the orthodox stance, right? You're here. Okay, you're stepping in. Okay, you're stepping in. You may be stepping in off an angle. So you're here. I can't show you guys, but I don't have enough space, but so you're staying off center line, right? I can't show you. See, there's a lot to boxing. It's how you shift your body weight. Okay? Right now I have most of my weight on my back leg, and I'm inching in. You can't see that. But I could also have it on my front leg, like here. Or I can have it balanced right in the center. And I'm chipping in, but I'm staying balanced. So this is where my body weight is in the center. Even if I lean forward, my body weight's really in the center. Okay? But you can't see none of that because you can't see my legs. There's a lot to boxing, okay? When we talk about being in balance and all of that. But suffice it to say, the spear jab, right? You slip the punch here. So I just slipped the punch that's coming. Right? I slip the punch here. But as I slip, I throw. Hook! Right there. Chop! Okay? And it's not an uppercut. An uppercut looks different. Let me show you what an uppercut looks like. So, if I'm throwing an uppercut, not a hook. If I'm throwing a hook, it'll look something like this. Ah! Right? Or, whoop! Right? Ha! Okay? But that's not a hook. Alright? And it's not an uppercut. Uppercut looks like this. Yeah! Yeah! Okay? That's an uppercut. It's a spear jab. I step here, I slip here, and I throw here. Okay? So, the key is to blind the guy. So he can't bring back the right hand. You have to be very bold with it. And step in. And this is kind of things with defense that Floyd did. So even against a taller guy, he'd slip the shot, step in, and jab. And his jab will get to the guy because he's jabbing as he steps in. There's a shotgun jab, which I keep on telling you guys about. That's another kind of jab. There's all kinds of jabs. The shotgun jab, which I love to use with my right hand because my right hand's this is a stronger hand than my left. But the shotgun jab is a jab which knocks your opponent back. So if your opponent was advancing to you and you pop a shotgun jab on him, it'll stun him. And then you can just take him apart with other things. The shotgun jab mostly goes to the head, but you can also shotgun a jab into the body. Alright? There's many different kinds of jabs. Floyd knows all the different kinds of jabs. He don't know everything in boxing, but he knows quite a lot of stuff. That's why we say he has lots of skill. But his skill is honed. So all of those different skills that he has, they're much more honed than mine. Like what I'm doing with you guys is just showing you, demonstrating some of the things that he do. He's a very technical fighter like Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis don't have as much skill as Floyd. Floyd can do many things. But maybe I'll list all his skills so you can see what I'm talking about. But Lennox Lewis and Floyd Mayweather, they're technical boxers in the sense that they got a lot of skill. Right? They also got God gifted. Floyd's very quick. You know, he has quick twitch muscles. You know, he had decent power. The problem with it was his hands and his arms. His arms and his hands. I have a rotator cuff injury here, but again, you can have a rotator cuff injury and be fine. But the extent to the injury, and depending on what rotator cuff muscle inside of this arm is damaged, could really, or how many could really cause more problems for you. And you can get it adjusted with a chiropractor or somebody who's an orthopedic doctor. But suffice it to say, I'm going to show you another thing. Alright, so notice that it's not exclusively defense that I'm talking about here. It's actually offense, but it's also defense at the same time. And a lot of people feel that, you know, they talk about these offensive fighters where they're throwing a lot of offense and that's their defense. Well, the thing about it is, defense and offense are not that much different, right? But the key in boxing is to make you miss and make you pay. So let me give you a demonstration to make you miss and make. Floyd, that's what Floyd do, okay? So Floyd will make you miss by slipping, okay? So he make you slip the punch, you miss. Then I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to put it straight to the camera. Wow. right? It's really supposed to go up, okay? So make you miss, make you pay is what Floyd do all the time, or most of the time. And so that's why I said, if a boxer can get hit, Floyd gonna beat them, because there's no way that boxer is going to outland Floyd. Floyd always gonna outland you, okay, round by round, not to the whole capacity to fight, but round by round he gonna outland you, okay. You're not outlanding him. He's not gonna throw as much as you, but he's definitely not gonna outland you. And the other thing about it is, I'm gonna show you something else. So I'm gonna demonstrate for you in the orthodox stance. I'm not really an orthodox fighter, I'm a southpaw, okay, so don't get it twisted, but I'm gonna do it in the orthodox stance. So I'm gonna demonstrate to you, but you can't see it because you can't see my footwork, but the way our Floyd move is again a defensive maneuver, but it's also an offensive maneuver. So if you go and watch Fran Sands, go watch Fran Sands. Go to the channel Fran, F-R-A-N, Sands, S-A-N-S. You're going to learn about a couple things that's very important in boxing. One of them is the stance and where you shift your body weight, okay? He did a pretty recent video on that. And one of the things you realize is, now you can sit your body weight straight down the center. So right now, my body weight is right in the center of my body. So I'm not putting my body weight on my front leg or my back leg. They're both equally on both legs. All right, so if I shuffle in or if I step and I'm pivoting, my body weight is in the center of me, okay? Now, if I put most of my body weight on my front foot, now I'm in an aggressive stance because I'm ready to do battle. That's what it's basically saying. So I'm leaning in on my front foot. Now, Canelo Alvarez, he will lean in on his front foot like this, and he'll come to you. Or he may lay back on his back foot. He might lean back on his back foot to catch the punches, and then go back on his front foot and lean in. All right? So that's an aggressive stance, where you're putting most of your body weight on your front foot. Now, the weirdest thing is, guys like Teofimo Lopez, he's actually a back foot fighter. That is, he put most of his body weight on his back foot. So most of his body weight is back here. And he's inching in, but he's ready to pivot away or shift away or back off very easily. Okay, he dance off and he's back in on you again and he's coming. But most of his weight is on his back foot. Sinicia Estrada, same thing. Okay? So there's subtleties. Floyd actually has most of his body weight in his front foot. He's always in an attack position, which is weird. Because you would think defensive fighter always in an attack position because he's always looking to exploit. And he wants to be as quick and as close to his target as he can so he can exploit that target and tag it. Okay? So that's why Robert Garcia was saying Floyd's not a runner. He's almost always in front of you. It's just you can't hit him because his defense is so good. But he's always in a position when you miss him or you hit, he blocks your punch, he can catch you with a punch. All right? I was watching Deontay Wilder, his training with Malik Scott, and I also thought that was really good. But let's talk a little bit more about Mayweather and TBE. So I just told you guys two little things there about defense. When a guy is set to attack you and is in attack mode, that is interesting because when Floyd is actually walking down fighters, he's on his back leg. But when he's actually in front of them, he's on his front leg. Isn't that weird? So sometimes he take that extra wide stance and he's sitting in the middle. But for the most part, he's leaning in on his front foot, trying to bait them in, yes, but he's also in that position so he can counter them. But in addition to that, he's not only a counter puncher. Like Floyd, also he'll lead off a punch. He'll initiate stuff. All right, it's not just about bait and counter. He would actually just initiate stuff and attack you. That's why you don't ever have any uncomfortable lulls where Floyd just watching a fighter and the other fighter's just watching Floyd. And that's something that a lot of these young fighters don't understand. they feel the other fighter needs to make the first play. Floyd don't do that. Floyd will take the initiative. If Floyd realizes you're a counterpuncher, he's going to come to you and start bringing the fight to you immediately. And he's going to start to walk you down and press you because he realizes there's going to be a lull in the fight, one. And two, if you don't do nothing, I'm going to be first. And I always say be first in boxing. So he going to be first, and that would be that. So they were talking about Floyd and the most difficult fights of Floyd's career. And Ellie Sekbak asked Robert Garcia, do you think that Pacquiao was the most difficult fight of Floyd's career? And Robert Garcia said, I don't think that, Ellie was saying that Floyd claimed that Pacquiao was the most difficult fight of his career, which I don't believe Floyd ever said that. But if Ellie said that, but he said that. Robert Garcia was like, I don't think that Pacquiao was the most difficult fight of his career. It didn't look that way. To him, it looked like Coda was one of the most difficult fights of his career. And Robert Garcia, you'd be dead on the money with that, because I believe one of the most difficult fights for his career was Miguel Coda. I truly believe that. Marcos Maidana, he's going to tout his fighter. He said Marcos Maidana also, because Marcos Maidana landed the most amount of punches on Floyd. Nobody has landed as many punches as Marcos Maidana did on Floyd Mayweather, right? And Floyd still outlanded him, but nonetheless. But I always thought that Miguel Coda was Floyd's toughest fight. And I'm going to give you three different reasons. The first reason was Miguel Coda. Floyd was at the point where he was now a very smart fighter. He had been very advanced. He had a lot of experience. He had a lot of championship fights. And still Coda gave him problems, right? And Coda, of course, came on late in the fight, 6th round all the way up to the 11th round. Coda was taking them rounds, man. He was taking them rounds, and he was putting punishment on Floyd. And I always thought that Miguel Coda, if there was any fighter that gave Floyd a run for his money, it was Miguel Coda, Jesus Chavez, right? They talk about Emmanuel Burton, so we got to put him in there. And Marcos Maidana also did a good job, because he kind of tested Floyd and was a competitive fight. Even though I still thought Floyd won that fight quite easily in hand down the stretch, because Marcos Maidana, he got tired. But I thought Coda was Floyd's toughest fight, honestly, straight up. Coda, Troy Ingram says Coda was Floyd's toughest fight. He hit Floyd with flush shots more than any fighter. I thought so. And he busted his nose. I mean, Floyd ran into a jab, and that's how he got a busted nose. And Floyd was like, he nodded about it. Coda really was a match for Floyd. And I always thought that Miguel Coda was, one of the best fighters ever of this era, right? I always thought that. People argue that Coda had a close fight with Canelo, and that's true in some respects. He had a close fight with Canelo. And Canelo was much bigger than him. And Coda's not even a middleweight, and he did that. And, I always thought that Coda had great fights with Zab Judah, with Torres, with Malignaggi, with all the junior welterweights. He was making a lot of noise in the junior welterweights. Then he started beating up welterweights like Quintana and Judah. I think he fought Judah at welterweight, not at thing. And that was a great fight with Judah, by the way. That was a war. That was a great war. Judah was tagging his ass up. You know what I'm saying? Shane Mosley had a great fight with Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley would have knocked his ass out, though, if they had another round. Shane Mosley, because that right hand was landing, boy. That right hand was landing. Mosley could. Hey, people say Mosley can't. Mosley can freaking punch, man. If it's one thing I know, Mosley punched like a mule. Vernon Forrest could punch too. Don't get me wrong, but Mosley could punch. That ninja could punch. But yeah, he beat Shane Mosley. I mean, Miguel Coda was on a tear until Margarito, right? Margarito kind of cheating ass. Margarito really messed it up for Coda, and kind of he kind of had to recoup. But I always thought when he beat Margarito the second time, he got his sweet revenge. Even though he lost to Floyd, it was a closer fight than they had on the scorecards. And I could show you guys how Coda won. I think it was. I can't remember exactly how the rounds go. I think it was he won one of the early rounds, and then I don't know if he won round 6, but I think he won round 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He won 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He won 5 rounds in a row, and I think he won one of the early rounds, and he was coming for Floyd. He was coming. I mean, if the fight went on a little bit longer, I mean, Floyd did take the 12th, all right. But if the fight went on a little bit longer, it would have been nice to see a rematch with those two. I mean, Coda started his thing late in the fight. That was the thing. He started late. If he didn't start so late, I think he would have. I mean, I think he took round 5. I didn't take round 6. I think Floyd took round 6, and then he took 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He was outsmarting Floyd, and Floyd was just dogging him. He was just coming after him, trying to finish him. And it was something to see because Coda always show us that he had brains, and Coda changes up his style. Like his style, he has a menacing style, but he can box on the back foot. He can come to you. He can set traps. Coda's a tricky dude, man. I really like him. Him and Freddie Roach was pretty good too. He and Freddie Roach was a good combination. Pedro Diaz though was good stuff. People like Marcos and Castillo were just throwing crazy punches and not really landing flush. No, Castillo was missing everything. I mean, we just watched it. We watched Champside show the replay of the thing, and Castillo was missing like crazy, man. Castillo was just he was relentless, but he was missing like crazy, and he was getting tagged up. At the end of the fight, Castillo had he was blood through his nose, right? So he had a bleeding nose. Floyd had busted up his nose, right? And he did land a left hook on Castillo before Castillo got dropped. He did step on Castillo's foot, but Castillo got dropped, and that should have been called a knockdown because he did hit Castillo. So all of that, and then we just learned when we actually scored the fight, it was 9-3. Because I had Floyd taking the 12. You could have given Castillo 10, 11, 12, right? You could have given 10, 11, 12, and I think he took round 7, right? Or no, 10, 11, 12, and he took round 8, right? Because that's the round that Floyd was penalized a point for using the forearm. So, I just never saw it. Like, Floyd swept the first 6. We all watched it and saw that Floyd swept the first 6. But the narrative on HBO was that, no, Floyd's in trouble and blah, blah, blah. And they gave Castillo round 3. Go watch round 3. How on earth you give Castillo round 3? And they were doing like Castillo was landing a higher percentage of shots. There's no way Castillo was landing a higher percentage of shots. It's just not possible. Floyd was hitting him with a jab to the pit all night long. Floyd was sometimes he switched to southpaw because his left hand was giving him trouble. But Floyd was landing a jab to the pit all night long. He was hitting him with the right hand leads. He was stiff arming him a lot, but he was using the forearm a lot. But other than that, he's tagging him flush shots. Castillo was landing some good body punches later on in the fight. He really came on strong. Like I said, Castillo came on strong later on in the fight. Right? Nobody's disputing that. Like a true champion, he was the championship rounds. Like some people say, I was listening to Teddy Atlas or somebody, I can't remember who it was, talking about how Oscar De La Hoya didn't close the show well with Felix Trinidad. Man, Oscar De La Hoya beat Felix Trinidad. It don't matter if he didn't close out the championship rounds. He beat him, and that's the point. Most boxing fans judge fights throwing crazy punches. Jim Lampley was the king of doing that. Well, first of all, Jim Lampley didn't know what the hell he was watching. Larry Merchant just was a hater. And Harold Letterman, I don't know what happened. He was so senile, he wasn't scoring the scorecard properly. So we had Harold Letterman scoring some crazy ass shit. We had CompuBox that was kind of crazy. And we had Jim Lampley who was just, he didn't know what he watching. And, what's his name? Larry Merchant, he just happy that one guy looking like he in the fight with Floyd. You know what I mean? Because he a hater. We knew this a long time ago. And then we was watching that, when you watch that, what's his name? George Foreman, he was still trying to, be level-headed. But he kind of joined in the stuff too. You know what I'm saying? And Big George knew better. He knew that Castillo wasn't landing nothing. You remember in, what was it? I think it was the 8th round. Castillo's throwing a bunch of shots at Floyd's back. Because Floyd spun him out. So Castillo grabs his back and punching him in his kidneys, right? Over and over. And Floyd's just laughing and watching him. Castillo's frustrated because he's not landing like he wants to. Right? He wasn't landing like he wants to. The most amount of punches Castillo ever landed was in the 11th round when Floyd actually started fighting him toe-to-toe on the inside. And even some of those punches, like... All right, so Castillo was landing a left hook to the body here, right? He was landing a left hook to the body right here, right? So if I'm here as Floyd, right? I'm here as Floyd, and I'm positioned like this to you. When you throw the left hook to the body, what's happening? I'm catching it right here, right? Because this is how Floyd look. He's side on like this, and he's up and on you like this, right? So, and he can raise the forearm to keep space to drop that right uppercut right in there, stab you right in there, right? So, Castillo ain't landing shit, right? He did land some shots on this side, but he ain't landing nothing on the other side. All right? So I'm just saying. Cootie Sister says, do you still watch Goodfellas Sports TV? Yeah, man, I'm subscribed to him. Yeah, I don't agree with everything he's saying. Like, right now, he thinks that Anthony Joshua would beat Alexander Usyk easy, and I just don't see that as an easy fight at all. Usyk's a problem. Usyk is a problem for any heavyweight. Usyk and Michael Hunter. So I don't know what people are looking at. I don't care if Usyk's putting on a little bit of weight and whatever, he can carry his weight. He's not just putting on weight just like that. It's scientific. And ain't no way in hell that Usyk is going to be an easy fight for Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua, I don't think Anthony Joshua is going to get Usyk out of there. He's tough, and he's tricky, and he's skilled, and he has good footwork. I just don't see it. Joshua going to have to box his ass off. Usyk could really take this fight. He's a threat. I'm telling y'all, watch out now. Him and Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter just not getting the opportunities Usyk had. Usyk, was able to be undisputed at cruiserweight. So, but Usyk's a problem, and he ain't no softy. You know what I mean? But if Anthony Joshua can figure out the style of Usyk, he gonna be in good stead. Because you have to know how to fight a southpaw. Yeah. So people say, well, Floyd lost that fight to Castillo. No, man. There's no way he lost that fight to Castillo. And you can go watch also the Top Rank telecast. Any telecast. I don't care. You see the different angles in the Top Rank telecast showing you how badly Castillo is missing all the time. Horribly missing. And Floyd countering him. And, yeah, he had a rotator cuff injury, but people just, I don't know what it is with people. And Floyd, Keith Thurman said it best. Floyd knows how to win fights. He knows he needs to get 7 out of the 12 rounds. So he knows how to win a fight. He knows when he's down in a fight. And he's very scientific about it. He knows exactly what the fighter brings to the table, what he does very well. He knows all of that. He can tell you all of that stuff at the end of the fight. And that's the mark of a cerebral fighter. And the only other person I knew who was like that in the modern times was Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis knew what was going on. Now, don't get me wrong. Oscar De La Hoya and all these guys know the same things. Okay? They know boxing like that. But it's just that they don't talk like that. And Floyd talked like that. You could tell he's very articulate about boxing. Floyd's very articulate about boxing. He don't always get all the stats and figures correct, but he's very articulate about it. And I always have the respect for him on that vein. The same people that say Floyd lost to Castillo will say that Pac won against Floyd. Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, the people, Arturius boxing is notorious for having controversial things, right? And I think he was one of the guys that said that Timothy Bradley beat Manny Pacquiao in their first encounter, which I agree with, but for totally different reasons, right? But in respect to Pacquiao versus Mayweather, what are we saying Pacquiao won? How did he win? He wasn't more active. He wasn't the more active fighter. 1. 2. He wasn't fighting his fight. He's fighting Floyd's fight. 3. He wasn't the most clean, effective puncher into the entire fight. If I look round by round, I look at the punch that made the round, right? How many of Pacquiao's punches do we get? We get it in round 4. We get it in round 6, right? We see those punches; they're very clear and crisp, and we see it in round 8, right? We see it in round 8 where he catches him, weak side, and he's throwing those double left hooks, right? He threw 2 double left hooks to Floyd's weak side while Floyd was trying to block and he got caught, right? That's it. In the entire fight, that's all you got with Pacquiao. How many highlight reels we got with Floyd landing that right hand? How many? Right hand check hook, right? Right? First round. Not more than 50 seconds into the round, Floyd connects with a counter right hand, right? That sets the tone for the whole fight. And then later on in the round, he hits him again when he's trying to get Floyd to the ropes. He catches him with another very heavy right hand. Two right hands. That win Floyd the round. Right? You could talk about all the other things, but that's what won him the round. You go to round 2. What do you remember about round 2? You remember Floyd check hooking Pacquiao, who's reaching in, coming in with speed, trying to throw a left to the body, right over the top. See, I remember all the stuff, right? What did you do with a guy who's coming in with Pacquiao speed with a left to the body, right to the top? You don't stand in front of him and you don't snap back, right? He's coming off an angle at you. He's coming off an angle at you, right? So you're not gonna stop that. What you gonna do? Roll and check hook, right? You're gonna check hook and roll out the way, or you just roll out the way. You saw Keith Thurman doing it later on, but he didn't do it because what happened with him was Keith Thurman was dancing, going back, and then he turned this way too early, kind of like Chris Algieri. When he turned the corner too early with Pacquiao, he gonna beeline towards you. He gonna cut an angle towards you. So when you turn back this way, as you turn this way, you're at a T angle, and he sees that T angle immediately. What I mean by T angle? You are 90 degrees to him. You're defenseless. You just presented your weak side to him because you turned too early. You understand? So if you are looking at me right now and I'm side on this way, there's no way none of my punches could get to you. None of my punches can get to you if you're going past my shoulder. So he realized that and he started attacking. And as Keith Thurman saw him, he hit him a right hand to the stomach, and then he caught him with a left hand to the stomach and then a right over the top. Boom. Because he saw that T angle. Pacquiao saw that he saw Thurman's defense open up immediately. He jumped on it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what people don't understand. It's all about angles in boxing. People say it was mathematical. What it's about angles in boxing. And Floyd's very good at math. Gary Henderson, man. Woo, it's a long time I haven't seen you, brother. That counter right hand in the first round was nice. Woo, it was sweet. It was sweet. That sent a message to Pacquiao immediately. You're not dealing with the same kind of person like the other guys you face. You're not dealing with Chachai Sasakul, Leo Leduaba. You're not even dealing with Eric Morales or Marco Antonio Barrera or Juan Manuel Marquez. You're dealing with a guy on a totally different level to them. You know, because when you try to close the distance, I'm going to greet you with something. I'm going to light you up. That's what he basically said. And Pacquiao got the message. He got the memo. That's why he wasn't coming in. You know, let me tell you something. Even if he was the younger Pacquiao, if the younger Wilder Pacquiao was coming in, he was going to get so much tag up. Floyd would have tattooed that ass so bad. You know, people don't understand. Floyd would have knocked him out. Because Floyd wasn't as accurate as when he was younger. When he was younger, he was much more accurate than he was when he's older. You know, Floyd was hitting him with check hooks, yes, but he was hitting him on the top of the head or up here. All on the top of the head here. He's supposed to be catching him either behind here or in the temple area. And he's kind of cuffing the shots. He wasn't catching him with the knuckles. You know, like how he caught Ricky Hatton with that shot on the chin, right? He wasn't catching Pacquiao with those shots on the chin. He was kind of like hitting Pacquiao here, and Pacquiao head would go like this to the side. You know, really, if you hit him on the chin, he wasn't chin checking Pacquiao in that fight. And I feel subconsciously Floyd holds back from knocking out people. Like you could sense that he ain't really going for the kill. He already realized, you know, I could beat this guy. Why should I knock him out? Well, I feel like he has an internal love for fighters. Like he has a love for boxers. He doesn't really want to hurt them because he's so good and he trains so much. And I heard he knocked out sparring partners in preparation for Pacquiao. And you really had to tick off Floyd. You really had to get him spiteful to really, you know, the younger Floyd, he would have knocked out Pacquiao, right? The younger Floyd was vicious. He loved blood. He was going for the guts. But once Floyd got ascended to the throne, he started to mellow out. And I didn't really see, like, you know how they say Sugar Ray Leonard had the killer instinct and Hearns had the killer instinct. The later Floyd, he wasn't in there to just, you know, kill guys because he had so much skill, he could just beat you. Mentally, he could beat you. And physically he could beat you, and he didn't have to put a beating on you. He didn't have to crash you to win. So I think he just sort of coasted. He pretty much coasted the victory with most fights. You have to push him to get that vicious side out of him. Even though if he's training, he would be vicious in training and stuff early on and then later on. But you know, you could tell he hold back. You could tell he's holding back on certain things. You know, because if he wanted to, he could. I mean, he could tear some guys up. You see a side of him that, you know, there's a different side to him. There's different gears to him. You know. XX Raw says Pac's signature move is funny. I call it the running man punch. You know who else has a punch something like that? He has a combination something like that, and it's also pretty brilliant. Oscar De La Hoya used to do something like that, not in an orthodox stance though. Oscar would lead with the jab. He would lead with the jab, come with the right hand, and then another jab. So it's boom, 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 boom. Right? So you come in, whop, 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 whop. Or sometimes he would go, you know, he would hit you, boop, body, boop, boop, right? Something like that. And Amir Khan also do something like that. He come in with a combination. He'll come in with like a 2, 3, 4 punch combination. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, boop, 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 boop. You know, a series of shots, and in a straight line. You know, and combination of punches, I guess they are. So he's coming through with a bunch of punches as he's coming in front of you. So if you time him and you pivot, like you know how Terrence Crawford handled him. Terrence Crawford pivot out the way, caught him with a shot, stunned him, and caught him with another one and dropped him. You know. So once you pivot out the way, because the guy's coming straight, he's coming straight down the line. You know, and Pacquiao, he do the same thing, but he mixes shots up. So he might go to the body, head, you know, then come back up with a headshot. You know, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pacquiao sometimes throw, you know, several different punches. So, you know, that's Pacquiao. But the thing with Pacquiao is, like, you can catch him in between those combinations. You can catch him in between the combinations. And Pacquiao realized that with Floyd. So that's why when he caught him, he stunned Floyd with the left counter. The left counter. Beautiful stuff. Because he said, hit me in my head, right? And this is what I love about boxing. He said, hit me in my head. But Pacquiao was leaning in like this. Hit me in my head. So when Floyd threw the jab, Pacquiao snapped back. Make Floyd reach in with the jab, right? He reached in with his jab. And once you reach in with the jab, Pacquiao was just waiting. So he pulled back like this. And you're just waiting. There's the jab. Boom. Boom. Counter left. Beautiful stuff. Caught him flush. He couldn't get him again because Floyd got smart to it. So Floyd was always staying in balance, and then every time Floyd popped the jab, sometimes he would dip to make sure he don't get countered by Pacquiao. So I think it was in the 11th or 12th round where Pacquiao, he was there, I think, or a jab or something. He threw a jab, was coming at Floyd. And Floyd threw the jab, and then he dipped under it and pivoted 180 degrees around Pacquiao. And when Pacquiao came back around and tried to proceed with throwing his lead left, Floyd cut him with an uppercut. And then snapped back out of it. So that Pacquiao didn't catch him with, I think it was the lead left or right hand, something like that. So, you know, it's all of this stuff that, like, for me, as somebody who, like, appreciates boxing and likes to do boxing and stuff, for me, that's real stuff right there. That's real talk. He tried it like 3 times against Ugas. It never worked. Yep. Because again, what Ugas did was he stepped back at an angle. He stepped back. He basically pivoted and stepped back at an angle. And then Ugas would be leaning forward. So he's closer to Pacquiao than it meets the eye. Canelo leaned forward. Ugas leaned forward. Floyd leaned forward. It's all an illusion. I'm closer to you than you think. And then you always got that 2 guard up. Ugas, that is. So, no, that head to body thing don't work. Especially when you're trying to go weak side and the guy's also, he's pivoting as he's moving back. So there's a difference between moving straight back like this and moving back at an angle. See? And when you move back at an angle, Ugas is circling this way, right? He's circling this way, which is anti-clockwise. So if I'm always circling you like this, I'm always circling you like this, I'm circling you like this, right? When you come at me, I'm gonna just continue circling out, and then you can't get the access to the punches you want to land on me. You understand? So that's the thing about boxing. Boxing is a thinking man sport, and you gotta have a right game plan to face the opponent that you may be facing. Sometimes you're facing an orthodox fighter. Sometimes you're facing a southpaw. Sometimes you're facing a guy that can fight on the inside, like Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker is an inside fighter. He could box you on the outside, but he mostly stayed on the inside and fought you in the pocket, right? I was just watching Whitaker versus Oscar De La Hoya, and I was watching Whitaker versus Chavez. Whitaker was a better inside fighter than Chavez was. You know, because he added that dimension of turning you. He's turning you all the time while he's fighting you on the inside. Good inside fighter. That's where Floyd have these inside fighting skills from. Pernell Whitaker, man. Pernell Whitaker sharpened that thing up. World Boxing 2013 says he tried it one time versus Floyd. And Floyd damn near steered him out of the ring. Yes, I remember. That's what I'm telling you. In the second round, that check hook. He check hooked him into the. He did a Ricky Hatton. He Ricky Hatton him, but he caught him too high up on the head. If he had caught him on the chin, it would have been a problem. Because Pacquiao went flying into the turnbuckle of the ropes. It was like, for me, it was like baseball. It's like Pacquiao's coming, batter up. It's like he hit him with a bat and knocked him into the and steered him into the ropes. That's how it looked to me. He's just different, man. Floyd is different, and you know, people talk about, like, I gotta be real with this. People talk about Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, his jab and everything would have dealt with Floyd, and I'm looking at them like, homie, how many jabbers has Floyd dealt with in his whole entire career? I mean, anytime somebody says, well, you know, Canelo, he can't deal with good jabbers. I'm like, how many jabbers does Canelo have to deal with for you guys to realize? How many good jabbers? I mean, he dealt with great jabbers who were also southpaws. Canelo can deal with a jab, right? And this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Floyd, Canelo, Pacquiao, they all deal with jabs, man. That's their thing. That's what they do. Durant to some degree. They deal with jabs. They love guys that jab, and regularly. And they only throw one kind of jab. It's to destroy them. Okay? Why? Because they have so many tools to counter a jab. There's so many different ways. If you go and watch the video with Smith, you know, Smitty, as they call him, in this corner, you'll see Floyd talking about how he deals with a jab. How he deals with jabs. You go and you check out Andre Ward. Andre Ward also knows how to deal with a jab, but Andre Ward jabs. So he will deal with a jab, right? He will either catch it, parry it, you know, use his jab to keep your jab at home and stuff like that. But Floyd has so many different ways to deal with a jab. And so when you tell me Sugar Ray Robinson was a good jabber, yeah, but what kind? Sugar Ray Robinson was only using like one type of jab. He would use one type of jab. Sugar Ray Robinson didn't spear jab. He did not spear jab. Right? He did not spear jab. Go and watch all his footage. He doesn't spear jab. He used different time in the jab. He used different pace in the jab. But he usually used one kind of jab. And he had that one jab going out there. So what happens if I take away his jab? What's going to happen? Because he do everything off the jab. Because Robinson was fundamentally sound. He did everything off the jab. He could throw straight right hands and everything, but it's always off the jab. He jabbed very often for that reason. Right? If I take away Robinson's jab, he can't jab no more. Does he have anything he can go by? Anything else he can fall back on? If I take away Thomas Hearns' jab, and I love Thomas Hearns, bad motherfucker, great accomplished fighter and everything. But if I take away your jab, Thomas Hearns, what do you have for me? Because that's the question Floyd always do. He took away Oscar De La Hoya's jab, and Oscar De La Hoya's an excellent jabber, right? Miguel Cotto was smart enough. So Floyd didn't really take away Miguel Cotto's jab. Miguel Cotto was a smart fighter, and he knew how to change stance and stuff. So Miguel Cotto, remember, Miguel Cotto is an illusion. He is not an orthodox fighter. He's really a southpaw. He's a switch hitter, right? So Miguel Cotto could go to a southpaw stance, and he could, because Miguel Cotto understands certain principles about the lead hand. Because it's not about jabbing. It's not about the jab only. It's about the lead hand and the lead foot, right? All of the boxers today know this stuff that I'm talking about. The advanced stuff. It's the lead hand and the lead foot. It's not just the jab. It's not just the jab. You could be a great jabber, but if you don't understand the principle of the lead foot, it really don't matter. You understand? You gotta understand the principle of the lead foot. What I mean by that is how I position my jab, how I throw my jab is dependent on where my foot is. So how I offset angles, how I change angles, how I change up my angle and how I want to do my jab is based on two things: my foot and how I change levels. Right? You understand? Because where I put my foot is where I'm going to jab. You understand that? That makes sense? So it's not just about jabbing, it's about moving and jabbing. Your movement, and that has to do with angles, pivot work. That's why I said your feet are the most important thing after your stance in boxing. If you don't have a good stance, it don't really matter. But if you have a good stance, a solid base, and you can move in boxing, now we can talk about the jab. Because the jab comes third. Okay? No, fourth. Because, wait, actually, first thing is hands up, right? Hands up is the first thing, and then your stance, and then hands up. And then after that comes movement, and then the jab. The jab comes fourth. Okay? It doesn't come first. So if you try to teach people to jab and they don't know how to block punches, and they don't know how to stand properly, and they don't know how to move in the ring, it doesn't matter. So, one, anybody who's a regular jabber, all they do is popping the jab all the time. I'm not interested in them because they're going to be predictable. And that jab is going to be taken away from them. A fighter, listen to Andre Ward. Andre Ward come from the school of Charlie Burley. He said you got to mix it up. If you're going to jab, you got to mix up when you jab, how you jab, where you jab. Okay? That's a higher level of stuff I just talked about there. All right? It's not just the jab. I hear people say, well, you need to pop the jab more. No, he don't. He don't need to pop the jab more than he's doing. Well, he's not jabbing enough. He is jabbing just enough. He got the person guessing what's going to come next because he's not just dependent on a jab. And with Floyd, you can take away his jab. You could take away his jab. He's got other tools that he pulled from the tool bag because he understands the principle of the lead foot and the lead hand. He an advanced dude. Okay? And so there's all of that. Because Floyd would come with a leaping left hook, or he would start using the lead right hand. He used the lead right hand on you. All of a sudden, he's using his lead right hand instead of his jab. All right? Or all of a sudden, he's throwing feints. So he's feinting the jab. And he's popping the jab on a certain occasion, but he's using different other offensive tools and defensive tools. You know? So it's this kind of thing that you have to understand. What we talking about with Floyd, Roy, you know, Floyd and Roy and some of these modern fighters today is they're taking boxing to a whole other level. They're taking it to a whole other level. People say, oh, well, the boxers today, they're more cautious. No, it's not that they're more cautious. They're defensively responsible. They're just as, they're taking pretty much sometimes more risk than the other guys back in the day, but they're just not as reckless with it. And they're more calculated in how they deal with things. They're going to crash a fighter. Okay? They're going to crash fighters. And they crash fighters. If you're not on my level, I'm going to crash you. You know? But I know the other guy is just as well conditioned. He can outlast other guys. I need to pace myself at times. You know? Some guys are very stubborn. They don't want to get knocked out. And they don't want to get out of there. And when you come to the cream of the crop, it's very hard to knock out fighters now. Because the cream of the crop, they're defensively responsible. They're like Lennox Lewis and Floyd Mayweather. You know, they're defensively responsible. And on top of that, they're also throwing their offense. They're still offensively minded and they're still coming for blood, but it's harder to knock them out now. It's much harder. It's not as entertaining for those people who like knockouts than back in the day, but it's just as bitterly competitive as it ever was. In fact, sometimes the playing field can be somewhat level because of that, you know? So I think a lot of people, they like to look back at back in the days, the throwback times, because when you look back there, you see knockouts. You see a lot of knockouts. And that's another thing I want to talk about, which is that, a lot of people always feel because of fighters knocking out other fighters, he's a hot fighter, he's a pound for pound fighter, he's this, he's that. But you ask yourself this question. Always ask yourself this question. Who the hell is this guy knocking out? Ask yourself that question. Who is he knocking out? Aren't these guys he's supposed to knock out? You know what I mean? So if you're feeding a fighter certain kinds of fighters that he can knock out, of course he's going to look good. Right? Think about what I'm saying. There's levels to the sport of boxing. Terrence Crawford been knocking out all the welterweights that he's faced so far, right? He knocked out Jeff Horn. Then he knocked out, who's the other guy? Then he knocked out Jose Benavidez. Good fighter, but inexperienced. Terrence Crawford was a world champion a very long time. He knocked out Jose Benavidez. Then he knocked out Amir Khan. Then he knocked out Kavaliauskas. And then he knocked out Kell Brook, right? But tell me this thing. All of those fighters I just spoke about, aside from Kavaliauskas and Jeff Horn and Jose Benavidez, Amir Khan was a good name to have beaten. He'd been knocked out 3 times. Kell Brook had been knocked out twice, right? Jose Benavidez is not on that level. He's not on Terrence Crawford level. He did well. He's competitive. He was long. And it's kudos to Terrence on dealing with a long fighter and doing what he did, coming to the end of the fight with that long fighter. But at the end of the day, the long fighter made the mistake, 1. 2, he was never at that level. You know what I'm saying? He was never a multiple world champion or anything. To say Jose Benavidez is a bad fighter, no. But he's like a Felix Diaz. He's like a Hank Lund. Well, not like a Hank Lund. He's like not even like a Victor Postol. Postol got to that level. He was a world champion. He got that confidence. So I can't even say he was on that level. Good fighter, though. He and David. But, that's probably the best fighter he had on his list besides Kell Brook, right? So, Jeff Horn, awkward fighter. Terrence figured him out, knocked him out, right? Do you think Jeff Horn would have beaten Danny Garcia, Errol Spence Jr., Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Manny Pacquiao? Do you think he beat Manny Pacquiao. He did. But do you think he could beat these premier fighters? No. They probably do him the same way how Terrence Crawford did him, right? Not to put anything against Terrence Crawford, but I'm just saying. So, I'm not using Terrence Crawford as a bad example. I'm just saying he looks really good because he's been stopping everybody. But the people he stopped, they're not top-tier boxers. Sean Porter is going to show you the difference. Terrence Crawford is going to have a hell of a fight on his hands, and it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a tough fight for Terrence Crawford. But he's going to come. He may prevail. I think he will. Sean Porter has been beaten before. So, Terrence Crawford should keep some of that in the registry. He's been beaten before. He has a loss in his mind. I never had a loss. I don't have no loss on my mind. I'm going to prevail. I'm a winner, right? So if he thinks like that, he's going to get the W, right? But ultimately, in the end, you will see the difference between a Sean Porter or Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman or Errol Spence, or Manny Pacquiao compared to the welterweights that Terrence Crawford has faced so far. Porter is a true test for any fighter. Yeah, absolutely, 100%, right? That's why he is in the top 5 welterweights right now in the welterweight division. He is a top 5 welterweight, okay? He's ahead of Pacquiao because Dennis Ugas was behind him because he beat Dennis Ugas, right? This dude beat Dennis Ugas, Danny Garcia. He beat I'm gonna face Lamar Peace. He beat David Alexander, right? Who else did he beat? He had a close fight with Sean Porter. He had a close fight with Errol Spence. I think he has 3 losses. Who's the other guy he lost to? Kell Brook, right? He lost to Kell Brook when Kell Brook was something. Kell Brook didn't get his eye out until brought by Triple G, and he didn't get stopped by Errol Spence, right? Kell Brook was something. So he got beat by Kell Brook. So, I mean, those are the three guys that beat him. You know, he hasn't gotten any rematches with them. He's faced almost all the welterweights. When he faces Terrence Crawford, there's only one welterweight he wouldn't have faced, and that's Manny Pacquiao. And if Manny Pacquiao retires, then ultimately he faced all the top welterweights in the welterweight division when they were top welterweights. So you got to give Shawn Porter his props. Obviously, Terrence Crawford thinking that he can stop Shawn Porter is a big ask. I'm gonna tell him why. One, Shawn Porter has seen every single style that there is to see. Terrence Crawford is not going to bring anything to the table that Shawn Porter hasn't seen. And then Shawn Porter has an array of skills to be able to deal with any situation. And Shawn Porter has enough defense that, you know, because people feel that Shawn Porter is going to get tagged at some point. Errol Spence only got 2 opportunities to tag Shawn Porter. And Shawn Porter did tag up Errol Spence. You know? I think Porter beats Thurman in a rematch. Possibly. I mean, does Thurman have the zeal, hunger, and desire that he used to have? I don't think so. But at the same time, he has a lot of boxing IQ, and he's a very good boxer. You know, still one of the best boxers out there in the welterweight division. And you might be right. Porter has grown by leaps and bounds. His defense has tightened up. So I would like to see him again against Terrence Crawford. See what happens. You know, Porter facing everybody and giving them a tough fight is kudos to Porter, because he faced everybody. You know, he would face Crawford before even Errol Spence faces Crawford. And by the way, don't count out Porter. Porter might just beat Terrence Crawford. You know, he might be plenty to handle, because technically speaking, I thought he beat Errol Spence. I knew Thurman would lose to Pac when he called him T-Rex arms. Yeah, because he's underestimating him. He's underestimating his ability to close the gap, close the distance. Yep. You can tell a lot by the way fighters talk. Yep. Well, sometimes though they be jiving you. Like Deontay Wilder be jiving Tyson Fury right now. You know, Wilder got he got some skills, and he gonna bring it to the table, and he's been experimenting with things, and he's now putting it all together. And Malik Scott is really a good guy to be training Wilder right now, because Wilder actually Malik Scott knows Wilder from way back, so he actually has the right person to train him that he might listen to. He would actually listen to Malik Scott. So this is gonna be a good fight. Wilder, I think, is gonna do a lot better against Tyson Fury. I don't know if he'll beat him, but I think he'll do a lot better against Tyson Fury this round. And he got enough time to prepare. But, yeah. Yeah, so Mayweather's not a runner. And for those people who say he's a runner, those are Pactards basically circulated that out there. And like I said before, Pactard shut me down from Facebook. A Pactard attacked my channel a couple of times as well. They're very vicious. Because once you start telling the truth, and you start doing videos that tell the truth, these guys started targeting you, and they try to shut you down. It's really crazy, but it is what it is. And the truth about Floyd Mayweather, I don't understand why that should be a problem. Somebody talking the truth about Floyd Mayweather. To me, that's weird that these people attack people. I'm not even talking about Pacquiao, you know what I mean? And they go attacking. Nothing good must be said about Floyd Mayweather. It's like, what kind of sicko mind is that? But yeah, so they shut me down on Facebook, so I'm kind of restricted for the next, I think it's 20 days. I gotta get some water, man. We don't have enough water around here, but we'll see how things pan out. Yeah, so what you need in the building. I spent a lot of time talking with you guys about Floyd Mayweather, why he's TV and stuff, and just the logistics of boxing that, you know, a lot of people don't really understand. Most of the casual fans don't understand, and it's okay. I mean, they're casual fans for that reason. But for the hardcore fans that I hear talking this stuff, this religious stuff about, you know, Sugar Ray Robinson is a better fighter than Floyd, and he would knock out Floyd. I'm like, dude, nobody's ever knocked out Floyd. So how do you know that Sugar Ray Robinson would knock out? You have no empirical evidence to support that. Then they go on and, well, Floyd's too small for Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm like, how is he too small for Sugar Ray Robinson? Like, well, how? How? He fought Canelo. Canelo actually was more successful than Sugar Ray Robinson at fighting at light heavyweight. How on earth is he too small for Sugar Ray Robinson? He fought Canelo. Canelo at super welterweight, not even at welterweight. So how is he too small for Sugar Ray Robinson? He's too small for Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns. I'm like, how is he too small for Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns? He fought Canelo. He fought Coda. He fought Oscar. These guys were middleweights. What are you talking about? Right? If he's too small for Sugar Ray Leonard, then he's too small for Roberto Duran. I mean, none of this makes sense. Duran fought Sugar Ray Leonard, then went on to fight all the way up to, he won a title at middleweight, but then he also went up to super middleweight and fought there, right? Because he fought Sugar Ray Leonard at super middleweight, 168, right? So, I mean, what are you talking about? You know, what are you talking about? They're not too big for Floyd. Because guess what? Floyd actually should be fighting at 140. And he's fighting guys that come into the ring on fight night 165. Canelo came in against Floyd. Floyd was 150 pounds and Canelo was 165. Okay? Tell me a welterweight fight back in the 80s where Sugar Ray Leonard would come in 165. You know he can't come in 165. They have same day weigh-ins. So Sugar Ray Leonard would have weighed 148, 150, something like that. Bone dry Thomas Hearns coming in 147, 148, 150. They can't go too much further away from that because they had same day weigh-ins. Sometimes they weighed just before they fought. So them guys was emaciated. That's why you've seen all the definition on them, right? So imagine that. Floyd's comfortable because your ass is only 147, 148, and he's comfortably coming in 146. Guess what? That works for Floyd. He's the smaller dude. He can come in fresh. Your ass is still dehydrated. All right, and this is the thing that people don't. They're not thinking about these things. Like they'll say same day weigh-ins back then, right? This is the true story. Floyd would never have been a superstar back then. You know why? You know why? Because he'd duck his ass. All those people would have ducked him. Because he's too fundamentally sound. Just like how they ducked Mike McCallum. They ducked his ass. Mike McCallum's not even half the dude that Floyd is in terms of all the things that Floyd can do in the ring, right? They ducked him. If Floyd was back in Sugar Ray Robinson's time, he would get ducked. Ducked. You know how I know this? Because the guy that has a similar style to Floyd Mayweather, and Andre Ward would have been ducked too. A similar style to Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward is Charlie Burley. Eddie Booker. Eddie Booker and Charlie Burley were ducked. They never had a championship fight. They were known as Murderers Row. And Floyd Mayweather was ducked by Oscar De La Hoya. Shane Mosley was ducked his ass. Costa Zoo ducked him. Prince Nassim Hamed ducked his ass. Okay? Because Floyd wanted fights with all of those dudes. He couldn't get none of them. Because this is the truth. If Floyd never faced Oscar De La Hoya back in 2007 and he didn't leave Bob Arum, he would have been a duck fighter for the rest of his life. He wouldn't have had he wouldn't have had the fights that he had. Because he became the cash cow, they had to face him. And Pacquiao ducked his ass too. Okay? So now, and I'm going to tell you this. See guys like Andre Ward, and people can say what they want. Roy Jones Jr. would have beaten him. James Toney would have beat him. Motherfucker, no. Ain't nobody beating Andre Ward. I would have loved to see Andre Ward versus Floyd Mayweather if they was the same size. That would have been a hell of a fight. I don't know who would have won. Ain't nobody just beat Andre Ward. They might beat Kazaki. Joe Kazaki might get beat because he get dropped and all that kind of shit, right? He was a smart fighter too, but his offense was his defense a lot. He was a smart offensive fighter though. Let's not make it abundantly clear. But ain't nobody just beat Andre Ward. Okay? Y'all need to have some respect for that name. That name is a serious name. Alright? I'm just being real. I know what I see with Andre Ward. I know where it come from. Andre Ward is a modern day Murderers Row fighter. Okay? He's a modern day Murderers Row fighter. The spirit of Charlie Burley on that dude. Okay? So when y'all talk, and Virgil Hunter, he know his stuff. He knows his history. He really trained Andre Ward. He brought up a really great one. He did a great job. Eddie Booker and Charlie Burley, that's Andre Ward. Look at him. He is those guys. He even looked like them. You know? Mayweather is like the Sam Lancathers of the world. He like the Jack Johnsons of the world. He's like the Charlie Burleys of the world. He just got the he just got the favor. He got the limelight that Charlie Burley never got. Eddie Booker never really got. Sam Langford never really got. And then he fulfilled certain things so that he wasn't target practice like the great Roy Jones Jr. He fulfilled what Roy wanted to do. He fulfilled what Pernell Whitaker wanted to do. That's why Pernell Whitaker is so proud of him. Because Pernell Whitaker, Floyd, do we need to say it? Floyd took after Pernell Whitaker. That's why he loved Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker is his dude. Okay? Because everything Floyd went through in his career, Whitaker went through first. The difference is Whitaker got robbed. Whitaker got robbed. And the fix was in on Roy Jones Jr. They got his ass when he dropped Montel Griffin and hit him after he was down. They got his ass. So they got Roy and they got Whitaker. They didn't get Floyd. And to this day, they trying to get his ass. Till he goes to sleep in the grave, they're going to try and get his ass. Because he epitomizes something that they don't want him to epitomize. An independent thinking minded black man with all his faculties who dominated the sport, who came from nothing. Alright? And that is what they don't like. That's the truth. He's successful. He's happy. Man, trust me, they don't like that. Alright? They don't like that. The industry, boxing is supposed to be about exploitation of human labor. It's supposed to be about, the fighter's supposed to be thankful and happy that he made it out of his situation and he's in a better position, and the promoter's supposed to exploit his ass, and the manager's supposed to exploit his ass, and he's supposed to live up his life, and then when it's all over and said and done, he's supposed to be punch drunk, right? He's supposed to be punch drunk, and he's supposed to be, at the end of the day, penniless. He's supposed to die penniless. That's how it's supposed to be. He's supposed to just be a cockfighter, right? He just in there, and he's just meat to be in there to entertain people. And at the end of the day, nobody give a fuck about him, right? Just all the great fights. Yeah, he was a legendary fighter and all of that. He's supposed to be happy about that. Oh yeah, I was a legendary fighter. And you're losing your mind, and you're losing your health, and you're going down the drain because you were just something to be exploited. Okay? Like Gladiator. The movie Gladiator, where a gladiator changed Rome, brought Rome back. Maxus Aurelius, right? You want to talk about real warriors? You want to talk about real warfare? Oh, let's talk about the game changers. Jack Johnson. Let's talk about him, game changer. They still got him. Right? You want to talk about game changers? We talk about Sugar Ray Robinson and what he was trying to do for Harlem and what he was trying to do for the kids. That's game changing. All right? But they don't talk about that stuff. They want to talk about Sugar Ray Robinson as the fighter. They want to talk about Sugar Ray Robinson, how he was trying to build up his community, how he's trying to bless boxing and get people out of trouble, out of the streets. See, they don't want to talk about that part. Right? You know, well, they talk about Muhammad Ali, but most of the time they talk about, you know, all of the aesthetic things that Muhammad Ali says. He said some controversial things too, which really are true. You know, and then we have Leonard, who changed the game. Leonard changed the game in terms of Leonard was I think he was the first guy. Mike Tyson was the first guy to get over 1 million pay-per-view buys. Mike Tyson changed the game in terms of pay-per-view. All right, and then Sugar Ray Leonard changed the game in terms of marketability and promotion after a fight. So Sugar Ray Leonard, he had his own promotional company. You know, he started to have his own banner, do his own thing. You know, and remember he had all those Taibo exercises and stuff like that. You know, Sugar Ray Leonard, right? He businessman. Very marketable, smart guy. Up to this day, businessman. You know, keeps his persona in limelight, makes his money, you know, off of his persona and everything too. And he's a charitable guy, made a lot of money, invested very wisely in his money, and so on. So Sugar Ray Leonard kind of pushed the boundary on that. Then, of course, Oscar De La Hoya pushed the boundary to the whole other level with promotion. And you got Mayweather Promotions too, pushing the boundary as well. So, you know, all of these guys, like, they added to the sport. It wasn't just the boxing in the ring. It wasn't just the fighting. They added to the game. They had game and they added to the game. And right now Floyd's doing something new with Tank. So Floyd's like, he's using Tank to he's telling Tank, listen, bro, you gonna beat them guys down the road. You gonna beat this one and beat that one. What we're gonna try and do is build you up and make you into a product that people must see TV. That's what we want to make you. We want to make you a pay-per-view star. We want to make you a big pay-per-view. But in my opinion, I always thought that Pretty Boy Floyd, who's ducked like a plague, Pretty Boy Floyd is set the foundation for Money Mayweather. Now, Money Mayweather fought the tougher competition. Pretty Boy Floyd, he had some tough competitions early in his career, but I would say that Money Mayweather fought the tougher competition. I think that Money Mayweather would beat Pretty Boy Floyd's ass. As good as Pretty Boy Floyd is, he can't fuck with Money Mayweather. I think Money Mayweather's just a whole other level. Like, he's a sensei level of fighting, And I think he would beat Pretty Boy Floyd's ass. And I think he would control guys like Leonard and Hearns, because they were younger guys, right? They were in their 20s, 22, 23, whatever. They were exciting fighters, but you telling me a 22, 23-year-old, I'm telling you an old-ass Floyd. I'm going to take a 36-year-old Floyd and put him against a 20-something-year-old Sugar Ray Leonard. I bet you he beat his ass. He's not knocking out Leonard, but he's gonna school his ass. Why? Because he got so much experience and he knows certain things to do to offset a fighter offense and slow down the fight and make the fight more tactical. I just don't see Leonard beating. People say Pretty Boy Floyd would beat Leonard. He ain't more excited. Pretty Boy Floyd is much more excited. But he'd have a tougher time with Leonard than I think Money Mayweather would. Because Money Mayweather's, very calculated with every single move, every single play he makes. He's very, very, very calculated. He knows he has a lot of knowledge. Like, I think the Sugar Ray Leonard now, if he could get a younger body and face a Money Mayweather, maybe, give your Money Mayweather a younger body, and you put those two together with the knowledge they have now, it would be a much more tactical fight. But the Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime, he ain't doing shit to Floyd. And I'm gonna give him the old Floyd. I'm giving him young Money Mayweather. He burned a lot of energy and he do a lot of things because he had a lot of ability and offense and all that, and he was excited. Right, cool. But I would really want to see the old ass Sensei Floyd school Sugar Ray Leonard's ass. I'm gonna take the old Floyd. I'm doing like them kung fu movies and shit, where the sensei just be like, they have the white beard and they just be stroking the beard, and the young fighter, the apprentice, is coming through trying to throw punches, and the sensei just like, pa, pa. That's the shit that would go down. Because youth, exuberance, efficiency, speed. Leonard was faster than Floyd. He's fast. Not tremendously faster than Floyd, but he's faster than Floyd, right? Because Floyd come from the lower weight classes, so Floyd has some speed. But speed don't mean shit. You fast, and that's great. And that's good for you. That means, you can get off combinations and shit. But I'm going to disrupt your ass. I'm going to do things to slow you down. I'm going to check your jab. I'm going to keep your jab at home. I'm going to keep your jab at home. I'll make you put that jab back into your pocket. And now, let me see what you got. What you going to do if you ain't got no jab? I'm going to take away your jab and I'm going to use your own jab against you. Right? That's sensei work. That's master level. Right? Now, the Sugar Ray Leonard now, who know and seen so much boxing and stuff, and knowing all the information now that he know, obviously he gonna fight totally different, right? So all I'm saying is, with boxing, as you get older and as you get more veteran, unfortunately your strength and the flexibility and the agility you had goes away, but your knowledge increases so much on the game. You wish you had that younger buddy then, because you would fight so much different. Yeah, Floyd is so slick. I have a clip on my page of Floyd versus Judah where Floyd uses offhand to blind Judah from seeing his punches. That was brilliant. Yeah, he can blind you and he go to the body. So Floyd like to tee off to the body. You know, Whitaker and all these guys like to tee off to the body. So they hit you any kind of jab, flickering jab, whatever, to the head, but they're really going for your body. Just Case says, wow, not even the no mask SRL? Nah, he can't fuck with Floyd. Let me tell you again. Sugar Ray Leonard now, you see the Sugar Ray Leonard now and the information he knows now, he can fuck with Floyd. For sure, right? Because when you get, like I said before, when you get older, you see boxing so much more, you see so much more about boxing. So I'm sure he's much more wiser than when he was younger. But the young Sugar Ray Leonard, yeah, he ain't fucking with Floyd. He's not fucking with him. Plus, he moved too much. He do too much unnecessary movement. Some of his pivots just way too wide. Like against Duran, why did he need such a big ring? Why did he need such a big ring against Roberto Duran? You don't need no big ring. A pivot is just a turn. Alright, you're coming at me. I do also martial arts, right? I do Shitaro, right? You're coming at me. If you pull counter, let's say you pull counter my jab. I throw my jab, you counter over my jab. But I have my hand here to parry. Right? Because you're always supposed to have your hand here. So even if I throw my jab, my hand's here. So if the jab comes, I just do like this, right? And I catch it. Right? Because what you're really supposed to do is jabbing. As you throw the jab, you have just to catch the punch. Fundamentals of boxing. So let's say you come to the pull counter, I catch your pull counter, I slap it down, I come over the top with the right hand. You dip under it, or you roll under it, and you come in with a left hook to the side. So I pivot off to the side, and then all of a sudden, you ain't got no left hook. Right? You might swing, miss, whatever. Right? I'm showing you how easy it is to fight a guy right there, in mid-range. Right there. And the key is to pivot. The key is to turn. And you can do tight turns. Leonard was doing all this bouncing. He bouncing all around the ring like Allen, wasting a whole set of movement. It's not necessary. You don't need a wide circle to get around and away from a guy. And Floyd showed you that. Right? Sometimes he goes straight back against the ropes, and then he would just collapse off to the side like this. Right? He collapsed off to the side like this. Lead foot is right here. He's back this way. Right? He collapsed off to the side. And then what you do? Then you collapse off to the side. You roll in, bump him with the shoulder. Bump him with the shoulder. He loves to use the forearm and the shoulder, boy. Sometimes he do like this. Lift the forearm and land the uppercut on the inside. Right there. Right? Like to do that. Take the forearm and lift your hand up. Like what you do with Arturo Gatti. And bang it to the body. Right? You look at Floyd. Floyd don't move excessively all around the ring. He not... I mean, against Marcos Maidana, the second fight, he did move excessively around the ring. But still, he ain't galloping. Sometimes he bounced, but he don't bounce for very long. He be pivoting around the ring all the time. Right? And he pivot with small steps. He don't pivot with big steps. Because you want to save energy. You don't have to like I said before, some of these guys, because remember, Leonard admired Ali, so he was moving excessively. You don't have to move excessively around the ring. You want to be in a position where you make a guy miss by inches so you can counter them. You want to be in a position to counter every single time. How are you going to do that if you excessively moving way away from your opponent? Against Duran, didn't need a big ring. He didn't need a big ring for Duran. He didn't. Right? It's boxing. And boxing's all about turning and dipping and slipping and rolling and all of that stuff. Okay? So, yeah, like I said before, Floyd would stand right in front of Sugar Ray Leonard, if he wanted to. Stand right in front of him, and Leonard ain't landing no punch and landing anything on him. Because if you look at Leonard versus Floyd Mayweather Sr., Sr. was standing right in front of Leonard, and Leonard couldn't land nothing on him. He stand right, and Sr. don't have the footwork like Floyd. He don't move around the ring. He don't even do the pivot work like Floyd. Right? He just had the shell. Senior basically had the shell. And he went 10 rounds. Sugar Ray Leonard only troubled him, I think it was in the 8th or 9th round, something like that. Troubled him, and I think he knocked him down in the 8th or 9th. But before that, he was having difficulty trying to land on this dude. Right? And the dude had fast hands, but he wasn't really landing anything. I mean, he was landing, but his hands didn't have any power. You know, Senior didn't really have that much power. He had fast hands, though. And they weren't really troubling Leonard, but he hurt him he troubled him a little bit every now and then, but he wasn't really troubling him. You know what I mean? So, like I said before, you know, you don't have to move all around the ring. You don't need no special big ring and all of that stuff to fight a fighter. Even if it's Duran. He might have all that veracity and stuff, but there's things like rolling under, rolling around, how you position your body. So another thing that people don't realize is in fighting, right? So I'm going to show you something about infighting. So some fighters, they infight like this. So I'm facing you like this. I'm leaning in like this, right? And I'm fighting you here. So catching you here, up the center, right? Right. So you protect your body on the side. You can do that, right? So some fighters fight him. But when you look at Floyd don't face you straight up like this. He's always angled in like this. And he end up on you with the shoulder. You know who else do that? And I really appreciate that guy. That kid. He's smart. Is Josh Taylor. He angled in on you. And he's right up on you. And even the old school fighters, some of the old school fighters didn't fight like that. Some of them did, some of them didn't. Again, it's how you use the shell. Lots of fighters back in the day used to use the shell, but not all of them did it quite like how Floyd did. And Josh Taylor always used the shoulder to bump you. He bumped you with the shoulder, aggressively bump you with the shoulder too. And Josh Taylor can really infight. He can really infight. That's his thing. Mayweather Sr. was too small for Leonard, otherwise it was pretty competitive. Oh, he was big. He and Leonard was about the same size. Senior and Leonard's about I think Senior is taller than Junior. He's faster than Junior too. Don't mean nothing. It's about timing. Timing beats speed all day, every day. And the thing with Floyd is he attack you when you're not expecting to be attacked. He has the timing. And Oscar De La Hoya talked about it. Oscar De La Hoya has faster hands than Floyd. Oscar De La Hoya will throw a 8-punch combination, right? Don't mean nothing. Floyd doesn't cover up and he's not really hitting anything. So speed is not everything. And that's why I said Oscar De La Hoya is not Sugar Ray Leonard, okay? He's a much more less refined version of Sugar Ray Leonard. Even though I think he would beat Sugar Ray Leonard when he was older. Sugar Ray Leonard was supposed to face him. He was supposed to get by Hector Camacho and then face Oscar. He was 40-something years old. Oscar would have destroyed his ass if Camacho was doing that. So I'm glad he didn't face Oscar. But Leonard's a little bit more. He's a little bit more calculated, a little bit more refined than Oscar. He pick his shots better. But having said that, Oscar patterned himself after Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay, so the blinding hand speed that Oscar has is the same blinding hand speed Sugar Ray Leonard has. They utilize it slightly differently. Oscar more wings his punches. Sugar Ray Leonard more keeps his punches tight, and he throws really fast shoe shine, and then he hit you with a hard, like a left hook or whatever. So he's kind of shoe shine you first, and then he hit you with a hard punch. But ultimately, at the same time, you know, Oscar kind of had the same sort of mentality and the same sort of approach that Sugar Ray Leonard had. I mean, you saw Floyd easily handled him, right? And you saw Floyd countered him with those combinations. Oscar be throwing a 3, 4, 5 punch combination, and Floyd would counter him in the middle of those combinations, and Oscar would stop, right? And I'm just telling you, the same thing would happen with Sugar Ray Leonard. Especially the older Mayweather. The older Mayweather was good at doing that. That's how he limits the punch output of fighters. And then, of course, you know Floyd's bread and butter punch is the jab to the pit, which Andre Ward stole from him, right? And Floyd don't, and this is something very important for you guys to understand. Sugar Ray Leonard don't jab to the pit by bending his knees. He don't bend and squat down and then launch a jab into the pit. Leonard bends over this way and launches the jab to the pit this way. Sugar Ray Robinson as well. So, whereas Floyd can get a shotgun jab to the pit, he could shotgun jab you to the pit and he hit you, bap, okay? Especially if you advance into him and he hit you, bap. solid shot to the pit, really drain some of the energy, or even could hit you in such a way that you get knocked down by it. Sugar Ray Leonard don't do that. He just bent over by the waist and he throws the punch. Okay? So it's just a different way of doing things. Had the Camacho fight happened early in Leonard's career, it would have been a different. Yeah, I mean, how old was Camacho? Camacho was Camacho still in his prime? I can't remember. But here's the thing about that fight, right? And Leonard beat he beat the brakes off of Camacho. Camacho did better against Chavez when he was younger than he did against Leonard. And Camacho was coming down from, I believe he was coming down from super middleweight. I think it was super middleweight he fought. It's middleweight or super middleweight he was coming down from. So he lost a lot of weight. Because Camacho, Amanda Serrano reminds me of Camacho, because Serrano, she would go up and down in weight, up and down in weight. She'd go up to super lightweight fight there, come back down to featherweight and fight, right? Camacho was kind of the same kind of dude. He'd fight at lightweight, then he'd go up, fight, middleweight, then he'd come back down, fight at welterweight, go back up and fight at super middleweight. After Camacho lost to Sugar Ray Leonard, he beat, after he lost to Oscar De La Hoya, he went on to beat Roberto Duran again, a second time. Right? And just to show you that the guy was the goods. So it wasn't that, Camacho was Camacho. I just think that I think that Oscar just beat him up. Ain't no other way to put it. Oscar just beat him up. Oscar was a hell of a fighter. Hell of a fighter. The Whitaker fight, Whitaker made him look stupid, but he was still kind of holding his own a little bit with Whitaker. I don't think he won, but he actually got some gloves on Whitaker. And that's hard to do. He got some punches in on Whitaker, you know what I mean? And Oscar's a hell of a fighter. Teddy Atlas, how he found a way to lose, some of his biggest fights. I don't think so. I think that Oscar should have gotten the win over Felix Trinidad. He should have gotten the win over Felix Trinidad. I'm always going to maintain that. He beat Felix Trinidad's ass for 9 rounds straight. Rounds 10, 11, and 12. He did take his foot off the gas, but he had already done all the work. You beat a guy for 8 rounds straight almost, right? He won the fight. Okay? So, okay, you could have come through the championship rounds and done a little bit more. But at the end of the day, he won the fight. He should have gotten the decision, not Tito. What's Tito getting the decision for? What did he do? I think it was a unification fight. Oscar was a champion. Tito was a champion. So what are you talking about? You need to beat the champion to get the title. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He beat him already. And he's a champion. I never understood it. I always felt that Oscar got robbed there. And no matter what Teddy Atlas say or anybody say, I don't agree. Oscar beat him. And that's how I see it. I see it as a win for Oscar. I didn't see him losing to Tito, and I didn't see him losing to Shane Mosley. That second fight with Shane Mosley lost that fight. Okay, Oscar beat Shane Mosley. Okay, Felix Stern beat Oscar for the middleweight championship title. So you can take that middleweight title and give it away. Oscar wasn't even a middleweight anyway, right? He was really a super welterweight, right? But at the end of the day, Oscar De La Hoya beat those guys. You have to call it as it is. Now, of course, fact-wise, the facts are that he lost, right? There's nothing I can do about that. This is my opinion that he beat him, okay? The facts are what the scorecards say. I can't do nothing about that, right? But I can tell you, when I watched the fight, I personally scored it for Oscar. That's all I'm saying. And I didn't see Felix Trinidad do anything. He didn't hurt Oscar. Normally Felix Trinidad knock out his opponent or bust up their face or something. He didn't do nothing to Oscar De La Hoya. Okay? He did nothing to him. He should not have won that fight. Period. Oscar outboxed his ass. Completely. Made him look stupid. Beat him up. Made him look one-dimensional. And it's sad because I remember I triumphed. I remember when I was younger, I raved over the fact that Oscar lost. Because I had hate in my heart for Oscar. And I look back at it and I'm like, he didn't lose that fight. He didn't lose that fight. He might have lost the Whitaker fight. Right? He might have lost the Whitaker fight. That's the only guy I think that beat him. But and was competitive. You know, he did swell up Whitaker's eye. Let's be real. Um, and Whitaker swelled up his eye and dropped him. But having said all of that, you know, I thought that he beat most of the fighters that he faced. The only guy that did beat him is Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley also beat him. Shane Mosley definitely beat him, and Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker beat him. Okay, but Tito didn't beat him. Felix Trinidad didn't beat him. That's why Oscar wants that rematch with Felix Trinidad. But I don't think he would get it as an actual fight. You can get it as an exhibition. You can get it as an actual fight. And Felix Trinidad could punch. We all know this, right? Yeah, we know about the glove fiasco too, but he could punch. And I mean, he got Fernando Vargas out of there, and Fernando Vargas was fighting a great fight. Both of them were fighting good fights. The only flaw with Fernando Vargas was he kept on trading left hooks. Ninja, what you doing trading left hooks? That's where the fight would always keep on tilting in Tito's favor. He was doing everything else right. He was dipping, rolling punches and everything. He was getting out of the way of most of the shots. He just keep on getting hit with the left hook. You gonna play into the guy's hand, man? If you gonna throw your left hook with the guy, please drop your head, dip, throw it as an overhand left hook. If you're going to throw a left hook, throw it as an overhand left hook. You see Deontay Wilder doing that, the overhand right hook. You saw him throw, and he dipped off to the side underneath Malik Scott, right? And yeah, he was a little bit off balance and everything because he's really trying to put torque into it. But the idea is, I'm going to catch you with the overhand right? He didn't do it properly, but I guess he was just doing it just to say he has a gusto in it. But Deontay Wilder's a technical fighter. I said he has good technique and everything. I've seen him throw good jabs and everything. So hopefully for the rematch with Tyson Fury, it'll be a better fight. You know, nothing is etched in gold. But yeah. Facts about De La Hoya, says Guy Andy. Yes, sir. Just K says the 12th round of Oscar De La Hoya versus Mosley was number one. It was a classic. Yeah. Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya. The first fight, yep. And Mosley was boxing his ass off, by the way. He was banging too, but he was boxing. And again, Mosley's a good inside fighter. But Floyd beat his ass. Mosley got his ass beat by Floyd. I mean, Floyd really roughed him up. And Mosley, hell of a fighter, but man, you know, Mosley's all-time great. Oscar's all-time great. Mosley's all-time great. Yes, they didn't win on most of their fights. Like, he didn't beat Vernon Forrest and Winky Wright. Okay, fine. Right? He didn't beat Oscar De La Hoya. He didn't beat, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. But everybody else he beat. Right? Everybody else he beat that was worth talking about, except for Canelo, right? Everybody else he beat. And he put on a good fight against Canelo. The second fight with Vernon Forrest was a much more one in which a lot more defense was utilized in the cat and mouse game. You know, the first fight, Vernon Forrest, I thought he was gonna kill Mosley. You know what I mean? And Winky Wright. But anyway, I'm just talking about these things because it's like, you know, a lot of these fighters today, they don't get the credit they deserve. Of course, Mosley was caught doping and all of that, but at the end of the day, Mosley was Mosley. You know what I mean? Mosley was Mosley. Clear or not? Shout out to ISO 2 Cold 444 says facts. Man, listen, man. I'm just gonna be real with you guys, right? The people who know boxing and the people in boxing know that Mayweather is the best that they have seen. All right, they may not be able to tell you that he's the best of all time because maybe they don't know all the old footage of old fighters and all of this stuff. They don't know, you know, all the Benny Leonards and you know you talk about like Benny Leonards and Harry Wills and John L. Sullivan's, James Jeffries. No, that's not James Jeffries was no slouch. You know what I'm saying? James Jeffries was a bad boy. But you talk about the Joe Gans and so on. You got a lot of fighters, from way back. So when you start way back and come forward, you got a lot of fighters, right? And all of them, you know, that's why Roger Mayweather would say that, but dude, you gotta understand, there's a lot of fighters, man. There's a lot of great fighters, you know? Because Roger was a student of the sport, right? There is a lot of great fighters. There's no if, buts, or maybe about that, right? But what I want to say is that, you know, when you're talking about the best in the crop, or at least the crop that people know about, because there may have been better fighters, but just we don't know them, right? And that's the sad thing about history. But of the fighters that we know of the crop, Floyd's up there. He's up there with them, you know, in the pantheon. And I mean, you know, levels. He's levels up there, you know. And so anybody saying otherwise, you know, you just hating. You just hating, or you just don't want to give the guy credit that he deserves, you know. And that's all I'm saying about that. With respect to some of the great fighters that we don't really talk a lot about, especially Jack Johnson. If you only watch Jack Johnson's the who he faced and who he beat, he fought the who's who, man. You know, you're talking about he faced Sam Langford. You know, he was also the colored heavyweight champion of the world, as we know. He faced Sam Langford. He faced what's his name? He was also a heavyweight champion, colored heavyweight champion of the world. I don't know why James J. Jeffries keeps on coming up in my mind. But he faced Fitzpatrick, who was, you know, light heavyweight champion, became heavyweight champion. He faced Tommy Burns, who Philadelphia Jack O'Brien had faced. You know, he faced James J. Jeffries, the man, the Great White Hope. You know, of course we know about Willard. You know, he faced can't remember his name, black fighter. Can't remember his name for nothing. You know, black fighter, one of the best black fighters out there. If Fury makes it in the ring, Fury will make it in the ring. He has to face Deontay Wilder. Otherwise they're gonna sue his ass, allow money. When you're fighting the best, you'll take losses. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You know, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's not rude. I don't think it's a rule. I mean, we got several fighters who fought the best and never took a loss. We got many actually. Guy Andre Ward fought the best. He didn't take a loss. You got Ricardo Lopez fought the best of his era in his weight class, from minimum weight up to light flyweight, right? Fought the best. Never took a loss. You know what I'm saying? You got Rocky Marciano, of course, and you got Joe Kazaki. He was a featherweight. Was a featherweight? Was he featherweight or flyweight? I think he was a flyweight. Forgot his name. He was like 68, 0-2, I think he was. British fighter. Forgot his name. Early 1900s. Trying to remember the guy. Can't remember it for nothing right now. Yeah. But you know, we had some great fighters who fought the best, okay, and never took a loss. It happens. Okay, it happens in boxing. The best of your time. The best of your time. You can only fight the best of your time, right? And you just didn't take a loss. Happens. Now, if you're saying if you go on fighting indefinitely you would lose, of course. Father Time is undefeated, right? So obviously we're talking about facing the best that's available. And when we talk about not taking a loss, that means, well, you should know when to leave and get out the game. If you don't know when to leave and get out the game, then that's on you. You know, because if you realize that you're not going to be your best, then you can't face the best. You should get out the game because you're not at your best anymore, right? So it's not just about facing the best. You should be also your best. You should be at your best. And if at your best is no longer at the level that you can maintain, then you should be smart enough to understand to get out the game. Because you can get yourself hurt in there. You know? So if you're not at your best, and you can't be at your best because now you're physically incapable of doing that, you should get out the game. Because that's the moment that, or you've been around the game long enough and you're just doing it for money now, you have no desire to do it, get out the game. That's when you get hurt, and you get hurt bad. So, you know, what happened with a lot of fighters, unfortunately, some of them, you know, the game was stacked against them. G. Andy says, true. Shane also lost to Pac. Yeah, he lost to Pacquiao, man. For sure. Just K says, that Super 7 series made Ward a legend. Yeah, we need more Super 7 series. We had a Super series which made Inoue Inoue a legend. Inoue Inoue's doing some great things, you know. And of course, Donaire's trying to get a rematch with Inoue, but he don't want to face Casimero. He don't want to face Casimero, and we all know this. Donaire don't want to face Casimero. He don't want that work. Say what you want about Casimero against Rigondeaux. And yes, Casimero, he'd be limited in the sense that what Rigondeaux showed him up. But I'm going to say this, though. Casimero's a problem still in the division. I want to see Inoue versus Casimero. All right? And if Donaire is a champion, he should face Casimero as well. I'm just saying. Of course, I like Casimero. So, it is what it is. But, yeah, the best facing the best. Yeah, I mean, the best is supposed to face the best. You know? But if you overstay, it's like people saying, oh, Floyd, if he was to come back in boxing, he would beat Errol Spence and these guys. Well, the point is he's not coming back in boxing, one, because he knows he's declined physically and he's not able to do that anymore. Manny Pacquiao is still capable, you know, but it's about time he bow out the game. It's his time to say so long farewell to the game because he's getting phased out. Even if you're capable and able, they basically know the blueprint to beat your ass, right? He's kind of figured out now. And that's the thing I wanted to talk about. So I was talking about fighters getting knockouts, and I was saying that, you know, they look they look unbeatable and all of this. But you ask yourself, who are they facing, right? And then when they face somebody and somebody beats them, all of a sudden they don't look so unbeatable anymore, right? And the mystique around them goes away, right? Because no longer people have to figure out how to beat them. Somebody figured it out. So what you find is people say, oh, after a boxer gets beaten, right? Oh, he out of his prime. His prime years was this. You know, he was just undefeatable. He's untouchable, blah, 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 blah. Not understanding, oh, well, somebody didn't figure him out. Now somebody figure you out. Now the other fighters know how to beat you. That's when people say you out of your prime or whatever. But it's not that. It's just that the fighters know how to beat you. Right? They figured out how to beat you. And that's the thing with boxing. It's a smart man sport, right? So I think a lot of times people talk about, you know, a fighter, he's not as great as he used to be, but, you know, like especially with Mike Tyson, they say, oh, Mike Tyson, the 80s Mike Tyson, man, he would have beaten this guy and beaten that guy. And I'm like, no, because he would have stopped this guy and stopped that guy. And I'm like, he didn't stop Tony Tucker. Like, you forgot about that? You forgot about his fight against Tony Tucker? Have you forgotten? He didn't outright beat Tony Tucker. Tony Tucker was landing some shots on him. He was getting, you know, he was doing his thing. So He didn't knock out Tony Tucker. He didn't knock out what's the other guy's name? I forgot his name. Bone Crusher Smith and the guy before Bone Crusher. He didn't knock out all those guys. There's a lot of guys he didn't knock out. So even though he was in his prime, he was having problems. And you could see against Tony Tucker, you see him stand up in the ring sometimes confused. Right? He stand up in the ring and then he would start walking towards Tucker, right? Tucker was using clinches, he was using a jab, he was landing right hands, he was fighting him on the inside, all kinds of things Tucker was doing. Tucker started he tried showboating, you know, he would try and do the right hand bowler punch and then throw the jab. And what was funny about that was seeing him doing that and then getting tagged, because once he started showboating, that's when Tyson would be able to do his thing. So it was funny, but I always bring this to people's attention. You know, they say Tyson was this force of nature, he was in his prime, and blah blah blah. And no disrespect to Mike Tyson, by the way, when I say this, it's people's perception of him. It was people's perception of him that his prime years was X, Y, and Z. No, he got found out by Buster Douglas. That's what happened. It wasn't that he wasn't training hard on what Buster Douglas had the style to make him be honest and keep him honest in that fight. That's what happened. And of course, Buster Douglas was super inspired in that fight too. But my point anyway is, a lot of people look at a fighter, he looked real good, right? They're not thinking about the opposition he's facing. They're not thinking about the fact that he looking good right now until somebody figure him out. And once somebody figure him out, we say he get exposed, whatever. But somebody figures out his style and figures out what he's bringing to the table, what he's doing, and what to do to beat him. All of a sudden, he don't look unbeatable anymore. All of a sudden, he don't look like he's in the prime anymore because he's in trouble. But he's still in his prime. It's just that he can get beat now. And guys who can execute the game plan to beat him will beat him. It's really that simple, you know. So I just wanted to say that because the thought came across my mind concerning, you know, Mosley and all these other guys. And I was like, Mosley, and all that, and blah, blah, blah. But people don't seem to realize another thing. They don't seem to realize boxers lose fights. Okay? The majority of boxers in the history of boxing lost a fight or lost some fight. And as we all say, a true champion takes a loss and bounce back. You have to have the mentality of whether you win or whether you lose, you learn from the fight and you make adjustments. Because there's always something to make adjustment to. There's always something to learn from fighting somebody. So, whether the fight lasts 2 seconds to it lasts 12 rounds, you learn something from the fight. So whether you win or lose, you win. You learn something. Since it's a competitive sport, you want to win. All you want to do is win. You don't want to lose. Okay? You want to win. Okay? So the goal is to win. Yes, the goal is also to entertain the audience, but it's to win. And I think a lot of people always get caught. Now, the entertainment fact, not understanding it's a competition and it's a dangerous sport. You can't be there trying to please the fans. That's your major focus, is pleasing the fans, and you ain't taking care of what's in front of you. You have to deal with what's in front of you first. And if you can look good doing it, great. You know, and so the focus, you have to have the right focus in boxing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I thought I'd put this out there since this was a recent thing that just happened. I talked a long time on this, but I really want to talk about some other things in boxing, so we want to talk about that another time. Shout out to everybody that came through the chat area. This is the other thing I want you guys to do. If you would share my videos, that'd be great. And also, in addition to that, if you guys have channels and stuff that you want me to promote for you, let me know, and I'll give you guys shout outs as well. Just K, G Andy, ISO 2 Code 444. I must ask you what that name means sometime in the future, man. Poopy Sistrunk was up in the building, as well as X Raw 2013 XX. Man, you know, real recognize real. Canelo right now on a tear. He's doing his thing. But looking forward to the Caleb Plant fight, though. Andrew Ward in the background was giving Caleb Plant a little bit of advice, a little bit of counsel, a little bit of showing him a little bit of things, seeing how Caleb Plant could do, testing his skills, all of that. So that's also dope. Shout out to Andrew Ward. Oh, man. Andrew was a hell of a fighter. Shout out to all you brothers in here that came into the chat to contribute to the chat. I got some other material I want to talk to you guys about. Like I said before, great heavyweights, champions, great heavyweight champions, great welterweight champions. We'll go through every division, and we'll talk about the great ones throughout time. And let me just make this abundantly clear, though. I'm going through them in detail because I want you to value and understand the champions that came before us. And some of them are not always mentioned. Like I always like to mention sometimes champions who nobody really know too much about. So we need to go through those guys, because some of the ones that are being celebrated tremendously, some of them are not as good as some of the guys that we don't even know. Some of us don't even know, and they have some remarkable careers. So we're going to go through all of that. I'm going to take my time. We're going to go through the heavyweight, the welterweight. I want to start off with welterweight, the great welterweight champions. We'll go through some of the history and records. If I could, I would play videos on here and let you show you them. But you guys can also go to YouTube, just YouTube it. If I can get another phone, a second phone, I'm gonna show you some of the video from the phone if YouTube doesn't flag me for it. You know, because I want you to see some of the guys from the past, man. They got so many great champions out there that, you know, we don't really talk much about. And they're there. They came, they left, they gave us exciting fights, and nobody remembers them. And that's just how ruthless the fans are. You know, we chew up all the content, we chew up all the excitement that these guys gave us. They lose a fight or two, and all of a sudden they disappear off the grid. And that's not cool. So we're gonna talk about all those fighters, man. We're gonna start with great welterweight champions, and we're gonna go through all the great welterweight champions. I'm not gonna start off with not just gonna start off with the ones that you guys know. I'm gonna talk about some of the other ones you guys might know about, like in the era between Sugar Ray Leonard's time and Pernell Whitaker and Oscar De La Hoya's time. We had Lloyd Hunnigan. We had the former trainer Mark Breland of Deontay Wilder. We had a bunch of them. You know, we had a bunch of really great welterweights. There was a 6 foot tall welterweight. I forgot what his name is now. Who was a welterweight champion? Long, tall, great long reach. I forgot his name. It'll come back to me, but just now, it's coming to me. It's Bruce something. Bruce something. Okay. I keep on seeing stupid ass Bruce Finch. Bruce Finch was not one. It'll come to me. You had some great junior welterweight and welterweight champions. You had great super welterweight champions. You know, we always remember Terry Norris, but we don't remember the guy that beat Terry Norris. And I'm not talking about Julian Jackson. I'm talking about when Terry Norris was in his heyday. A guy came in and upset him, and he was champion for a good period of time. I forgot what his name is. But anyway, we'll go through all of that. We'll go through. You know what's also a nice, cool thing to do? And I'm going to spend some time doing it with you guys. I'm trying to use StreamYard for that. We will go through all of a certain era of fighters. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you all the top guys in that era. And we'll go era by era and until we get to the end. And that's going to be a hell of a study to do. But it will be fun because at the end of it, we're going to have discussions and talks, and you guys can talk about them and everything. Some of the guys that we're going to talk about, we won't have any footage for them. So I've been trying to find footage for certain fighters, and I just can't get them. You know, but we just had to go by word of mouth and stuff and try and piece together pieces of things we can find. If somebody has footage on them as we're going through the stream, we'll cover it. The other thing I want to do is work along with Tommy Temper. I've been trying to get in contact with Tommy Temper to work out a project for you guys. Because some of you, well, we'll get to it, but it'll happen soon enough. I'll have to talk with Tommy Temper about it, though. See if he's cool with it. It depends on his situation. So, yeah, that's what I got. What you need. It's almost, we are almost on 2 hours. I've been talking. And it's about to roll to a close in about 12 seconds. So what I'm going to do is, that's what we're going to go through, and I might do another piece on the history of boxing. So I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace. What you need out.